Jake was a soldier stationed at a remote military base. This base was not like others on Earth. It was built on a large piece of land near a desert, far away from cities and towns. The base was important because it worked with other countries. On a secret project about space exploration, people there hoped one day humans could travel to other planets and meet beings from far away. Jake liked his job, even if it was sometimes boring. He was responsible for guarding one part of the base during the night shift. The base was quiet and dark at night with only the stars shining above. One evening, everything changed. Jake was walking through the hallways, checking the doors and windows as usual. The air was cool, and his boots made soft sounds on the floor. Suddenly, he saw a shadow move quickly near one of the rooms. His heart started beating faster. He stopped and looked closely. The shadow was not like any person he had seen before. It was a woman, but her appearance was strange. Her skin had a slight glow, and her eyes were bigger than normal. She wore clothes that looked different from human clothes. Smooth, shiny, and light. Jake was confused. Who was this woman? How did she get inside the base? She looked lost and scared, but she did not try to run away. She moved slowly and quietly, as if she was trying not to be noticed. Jake decided to approach her carefully. He raised his hand and said, "Hey, wait! Are you okay?" The woman looked at him with wide eyes. She did not understand his words, but she saw that Jake was not angry or dangerous. She shook her head, slowly, trying to say no in her way. Jake noticed her hands shaking. She was frightened. He lowered his weapon and said softly, "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The woman took a small step closer. Jake saw that she was not human, but she was also not scary. There was something gentle in her face, something sad and confused. Jake wanted to help her, but he didn't know how. He reached out his hand slowly, hoping she would trust him. After a moment, she took his hand with her small, warm fingers. Jake led her to a nearby room that was empty and safe. He closed the door behind them. The woman looked around, still unsure where she was. Jake tried to speak to her, but she did not understand English. He showed her a bottle of water and pointed to it. She nodded and drank slowly. Jake smiled, feeling happy she was safe. As the night passed, Jake stayed with her. He asked her questions, but all he got were confused looks and silent gestures. He decided to call her Lyra, a name that sounded soft and easy to say. He thought maybe it would help them start to communicate. Lyra watched Jake carefully. She seemed curious, but also cautious. She looked at the small objects in the room, the lights, and the pictures on the walls. She touched things gently, like she was seeing them for the first time. Jake realized she was from somewhere very different. He wondered how she ended up here. Jake thought about the stories he had heard during training. They talked about possible meetings with aliens, but never expected it to happen to him. Now here was Lyra, a real alien woman in his room. He felt a mixture of fear and wonder. Could she be dangerous? Or was she just as lost as he was? Outside, the base was calm. No, one knew what was happening in Jake's room. Jake decided to keep Lyra safe. He did not want anyone to hurt her or scare her. Maybe she was a visitor from another world who needed help. The next morning, Jake took Lyra to the base commander. He explained everything as best as he could. The commander was surprised, but agreed to keep Lyra safe for now. They decided not to tell the whole base until they understood more. Jake felt relieved that Lyra would not be alone. As days went by, Jake and Lyra tried to learn from each other. Jake showed her how to use simple things like phones and lights. Lyra taught Jake strange sounds and signs that were part of her language. They laughed and made mistakes, but they never gave up. Lyra started to smile more. She felt comfortable around Jake. The strange alien was no longer just a mystery, but a friend. Jake realized that meeting Lyra was the most unexpected thing that had ever happened to him. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew he wanted to protect her. One night. Jake looked at the stars through the window. He thought about Lyra's home. He wondered if she missed it or wanted to go back. But now it seemed she did not want to leave. She had found something new here. Friendship, safety, and maybe something even more special. Jake knew that their story was just beginning. The alien woman who accidentally entered his room had changed his life forever. And somehow, he hoped their lives would stay connected no matter what happened next. After the first surprise and shock had passed, Jake started to understand more about Lyra. She was not just a visitor, she was an explorer from a faraway planet. One day, as Jake carefully watched her, he noticed small changes in how she acted. She looked more curious about the base, the people, and everything around her. She wanted to learn about this new world she had accidentally come to. Lyra's home was very different from Earth. Jake learned this little by little. She showed him pictures on a small device she carried with her. The pictures were bright and strange. Tall mountains made of crystal, skies with colors he had never seen, and cities that floated in the air. Lyra pointed to these pictures and smiled softly. Jake could see how much she missed her planet, but at the same time, she was fascinated by Earth. Her spaceship had broken down, and that was why she had landed on Earth. She had tried to fix it, but the tools she needed were inside the ship, which was now hidden in a place no one could reach. Lyra explained this using simple signs and drawings. Jake realized she was stuck here until someone helped her repair her ship, but while she waited, she wanted to explore and learn about Earth. Jake wanted to help her. Every day after his work, he spent time teaching her how humans lived. He showed her how to use common objects like cups, chairs, and phones. Lyra was a quick learner. She loved to watch how people moved, talked, and acted. Sometimes she would try to copy their behavior and Jake would laugh. Her attempts were cute and made the nights less lonely. Lyra also taught Jake about her planet, which she called Zephyrah. She told him about the Zepharians' way of living, how they cared for their environment and each other. She used small drawings and hand gestures to show how peaceful her world was. Jake felt a deep respect for her and her people. Though they came from different worlds, Jake and Lyra found many things in common. They both cared about friendship and trust. Lyra was gentle, kind, and curious. Jake was brave, patient, and protective. Their connection grew stronger every day. However, their friendship was not without problems. Some soldiers and scientists at the base started to notice Lyra's presence. They became worried. They whispered about what she could be, a threat, a spy, or something dangerous. Jake tried to explain that Lyra was not harmful. She was only a visitor who needed help. One day, a group of officers came to talk to Jake. They told him that they planned to study Lyra closely. They wanted to learn about her technology and her planet. Jake felt nervous. He knew that Lyra would not like to be treated like a test subject. He promised himself he would protect her. Lyra began to feel the tension too. She noticed how some people looked at her with fear or suspicion. She started to stay close to Jake, feeling safer by his side. Her smile became softer and more thoughtful. She did not want to cause trouble, but she was also scared of being taken away. Despite these fears, Lyra grew more interested in human life. She wanted to understand everything: the food, the music, the stories. Jake showed her pictures of Earth's animals and plants. Lyra was amazed by the variety and beauty. She said Earth was very different from Zephyrah, but very special too. Jake and Lyra would often sit by the window at night looking at the stars. They shared stories about their homes and dreams. Lyra told Jake about the stars in her sky, which shone brighter and in many colors. Jake told her about the hopes humans had for the future. One evening, Jake found Lyra looking at his military uniform. She touched it gently and asked with her eyes if she could try it on. Jake laughed and helped her wear it. She looked strange but proud. It was a simple moment, but it showed how close they had become. The more time passed, the more Jake understood that Lyra was not just visiting, she was beginning to feel like Earth was a new home for her. She liked the kindness of people, the freedom of the open sky, and the simple beauty of nature. Jake also noticed something special inside himself. He cared about Lyra not just as a friend, but as someone very important in his life. He wanted to keep her safe and happy no matter what challenges came. But there was a problem they could not ignore. The military leaders wanted to control Lyra. They planned to keep her on the base for study. Jake knew this was wrong. Lyra was a living being, not an object to be examined. One night, Jake sat with Lyra and told her about the dangers. She held his hand and looked worried. She didn't want to be locked away or separated from him. Jake promised her he would find a way to keep her free. They made a plan to be careful. Jake said he would protect her and keep her presence a secret from most of the base. Lyra agreed, trusting Jake completely. Their bond had grown from a strange accident into something deep and meaningful. They were no longer just soldier and alien. They were friends, allies, and perhaps even something more. The days ahead would be full of challenges. But for now, Jake and Lyra found comfort in each other's company. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to protect their unusual friendship against all odds. As time passed, Jake and Lyra's friendship grew stronger. They spent almost every free moment together, learning about each other's worlds. Jake showed Lyra how to play simple games on his phone, and Lyra shared her alien music, which sounded strange but beautiful. The more they talked, the more Jake understood how different and special Lyra was. But at the same time, he realized that she was beginning to feel like she belonged on Earth. However, not everyone at the base was happy about Lyra's presence. Some of the officers and scientists were worried. They had questions that they wanted answers to. Where did she come from? What was her purpose on Earth? Could she be dangerous? Rumors began to spread quietly around the base, and the atmosphere started to change. One day, Jake was called to the commander's office. The commander looked serious and said, "Jake, we know about the alien visitor. She is a valuable discovery. We want to study her. It's important for our security and future missions." Jake felt his heart sink. He understood what the commander meant. They wanted to keep Lyra in a secure place, away from everyone else, so they could study her and learn from her technology. Jake knew that Lyra would not want this. She was not a subject to be examined, but a living, feeling being. He thought about the kindness in her eyes and the trust she had placed in him. He could not let her be locked away like a prisoner. "Sir, I believe Lyra is peaceful. She means no harm," Jake said carefully. "She deserves respect and freedom." The commander nodded but said firmly, "I understand your feelings, Jake, but this is bigger than us. We must follow orders." After that meeting, Jake felt torn. He wanted to protect Lyra, but he was also a soldier who had to follow rules. He decided to warn Lyra about the plan to study her. He found her sitting alone by a window, looking at the stars. When he told her, her eyes filled with worry and fear. "I don't want to be kept here like a prisoner," Lyra said quietly. She looked at Jake and asked with a trembling voice, "What will happen?" Jake took her hand gently and promised, "I will find a way to keep you safe. We will face this together." Lyra squeezed his hand, and they both knew their friendship had become something much deeper. It was no longer just about helping a visitor. It was about trust, care, and protecting someone they loved. Meanwhile, other soldiers noticed Jake spending so much time with Lyra. They whispered behind his back and grew suspicious. One day, a young soldier approached Jake and said, "You're spending too much time with her. It's not safe. People are watching." Jake nodded but didn't say much. He knew they were right to worry. The base was a place of rules and order, and anyone who was different could be seen as a threat. Lyra, too, felt the change. She noticed how people's eyes followed her, sometimes with fear, sometimes with anger. She began to stay close to Jake even more. She was scared but found strength in his presence. One evening, Jake and Lyra took a walk outside the base, under the open sky. The stars shone bright, and the cool wind touched their faces. Lyra pointed at the sky and showed Jake a constellation from her home planet. It was a beautiful pattern that looked like a bird flying high. Jake listened carefully, fascinated by her stories. He realized that despite their differences, both of their worlds shared the same sky, a sky full of stars and endless possibilities. As they walked back, Jake made a decision. He would do everything in his power to protect Lyra. He began to think about ways to keep her hidden, safe from those who wanted to control her. Lyra wanted to help too. She had some knowledge of technology and showed Jake a small device she kept hidden. It was part of her ship's system. Together, they worked, quietly at night, trying to communicate with her home planet and find a way to call for help. But the military's interest grew stronger. Orders came to increase security, and Jake knew they had little time before someone would discover their secret plan. One day, a high-ranking officer arrived at the base. He was known for being strict and focused on his duty. He ordered a search of the area, looking for any sign of the alien's ship or hidden technology. Jake felt the pressure. He knew that if the ship or any alien tools were found, Lyra would be taken away immediately. In a brave move, Jake hid Lyra in a secret room in the base where very few people went. The room was small but safe, with no cameras and little chance of discovery. For days, Jake brought her food and supplies. They talked about their hopes and fears. Lyra said she did not want to leave Earth anymore. She said, "Here, I feel alive. Here, I am not alone." Jake's heart filled with hope and sadness. He wanted to believe they could stay together, but he knew the danger was growing. One night, as they sat in the dark room, Jake whispered, "No matter what happens, we will face it together." Lyra smiled softly and rested her head on his shoulder. In that quiet moment, two beings from different worlds found comfort and courage in each other. Their story was no longer just about a soldier and an alien visitor. It was about friendship, trust, and the courage to stand against fear and misunderstanding. The challenges ahead would be difficult, but Jake and Lyra were ready to fight for their freedom, their friendship, and their future. Jake knew time was running out. The military was growing more serious about finding Lyra. The base was becoming more alert, and more soldiers were watching closely. Jake could feel the pressure on his shoulders. He wanted to keep Lyra safe, but he also knew they could not hide forever. One evening, Jake sat down with Lyra in the small hidden room where she stayed. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the base outside. Lyra looked worried but calm. Jake took her hands gently and said, "We need to decide what to do next. Staying hidden is not enough." Lyra nodded. She looked into Jake's eyes and said, "I don't want to go back to being alone. Here with you I feel safe. I want to stay." Jake smiled softly, but his heart was heavy. He understood her feelings. He too did not want to lose her or send her away. But he also knew that the military would never allow her to live freely on the base or outside it. Together, they began to think of a plan. They needed to find a way to keep Lyra safe without letting the soldiers find her or take her away. Jake said, "We can't do this alone. We need help from people we trust." Jake reached out to a few close friends he had made at the base, people he knew would not betray him. He explained the situation carefully, asking for their support. To his relief, a few agreed to help. They promised to keep Lyra's presence a secret and to help find a way to protect her. The group started working in secret. They shared ideas about how to hide Lyra better, how to stop the soldiers from discovering her, and how to help her communicate with her home planet. It was risky, but everyone agreed it was worth it. Meanwhile, Lyra practiced blending in more with the humans around her. Jake helped her learn to move and speak in ways that would attract less attention. She learned to smile politely, to nod, and to avoid drawing curious looks. At the same time, the military intensified their search. They checked every corner of the base, scanned for unusual signals, and asked questions. Jake felt the walls closing in. He knew they had to act fast. One night, while Jake was guarding the hallway, he heard footsteps behind him. It was one of the officers who had been watching him closely. The officer stopped and looked at Jake with a serious face. "We know you have been hiding something," he said quietly. "If you don't tell us, it will only get worse." Jake kept calm. He said, "I only want to protect someone who means no harm." The officer nodded slowly and left. Jake hoped the man would understand, but he was not sure. Back in the hidden room, Jake and Lyra talked about their options. Lyra said, "If I leave, I will have to fix my ship, but I don't want to leave you." Jake took a deep breath. "Maybe we can find a way for you to stay here, somewhere safe, where no one will find you. Or maybe we can find a place far from here where you can live freely." Lyra looked hopeful, but also sad. "I want to be with you, Jake, but I also want to be free." Days turned into weeks. The secret group worked hard. They set up safe places for Lyra to move when needed. They created distractions to keep the soldiers busy. They sent messages to Lyra's home planet, hoping for help. Jake and Lyra grew closer during this time. They shared small moments of happiness, laughing over simple jokes, watching the sunrise, and talking about dreams for the future. One day, Jake surprised Lyra with a small garden he had made in a quiet corner of the base. He planted flowers and herbs that reminded Lyra of her home planet. Lyra's eyes filled with tears of joy. She hugged Jake tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "This means everything." But even with the hope and friendship, the danger was real. The military was not going to stop searching. Jake knew they had to be ready for whatever came next. One night, as they sat together, Jake said, "No matter what happens, we will face it together. You don't have to be afraid." Lyra smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. "I trust you, Jake." In that moment, two different worlds came together through trust and love. They had found something rare and beautiful in each other. Their journey was far from over. But with courage and hope, they were ready to face the future, whatever it might bring. The days passed slowly, but Jake and Lyra stayed hopeful. They knew their time together was precious, but the threat of discovery grew closer every day. The military was still searching, and the pressure on Jake increased. Yet, they refused to give up. Their friendship had become something stronger, something worth fighting for. Jake and the small group of friends who helped them had created a careful plan. If the military came too close, Lyra would move to a safer place far from the base. They had prepared supplies and hidden routes, but Jake wished for a better solution, one where Lyra could live freely, without hiding. Lyra spent her days learning more about Earth and its people. She grew fascinated by human culture. She loved the simple joys of life, listening to music, watching sunsets, and tasting different foods. Jake introduced her to his favorite meals, and she smiled with delight at new tastes. One afternoon, Lyra asked Jake to take her outside the base. They walked into a nearby forest, where the trees were tall and the air smelled fresh. Lyra touched the leaves gently, smiling at the sunlight through the branches. "It is beautiful," she said softly. Jake nodded, glad to see her happy. They walked deeper into the woods. Jake told Lyra about his life before the military, the family he missed, the dreams he had. Lyra listened carefully, sharing stories from her home planet too. Even though their worlds were different, they understood each other's feelings: hope, fear, and the desire to belong. But their peaceful moments were short. One day, the military finally discovered the hidden room where Lyra stayed. Soldiers arrived quickly, surrounding the place. Jake's heart pounded. He ran to Lyra and told her to stay calm. The commander appeared and said firmly, "Lyra, you must come with us. It is for your safety and ours." Lyra looked scared but stood tall. She shook her head slowly. "I don't want to leave," she said quietly. "I want to stay here." Jake stepped forward and spoke with courage. "She is not a threat. She has done nothing wrong. Please let her stay." The commander hesitated but said, "Orders are orders. We must study her for the good of all." Jake felt angry and sad. He looked at Lyra, who held his hand tightly. Then he made a decision. "If you want to take her, you must go through me." The soldiers paused. The tension was high. But before anyone could act, a strange sound came from the sky. A ship appeared above the base. It was Lyra's people coming to help her. The aliens landed quickly, their presence calming the soldiers. They spoke gently to the commander, explaining that Lyra was a peaceful explorer who wanted to learn and live peacefully on Earth. The commander listened and slowly agreed to let Lyra stay, with some rules to keep everyone safe. Jake breathed, a sigh of relief. Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes, feeling free for the first time in a long while. After that day, life changed for Jake and Lyra. She was no longer hidden. She was accepted as a visitor and friend. She continued to learn about Earth and share her own knowledge. Jake showed her the beauty of human life, and Lyra showed Jake the wonder of the stars. Together, they helped build a bridge between two worlds, showing that understanding and kindness could overcome fear and doubt. Their friendship became a symbol of hope, that no matter how different we are, we can find connection and love. Jake and Lyra knew their journey was only beginning, but they were ready. Together, they faced the future, knowing they belonged to each other and to two worlds forever.